One chance, one life, one take. Little room for mistake. Who do you want to be?
Hello and welcome to the Dead Funny, Dead Serious podcast. Today, this is part of the series End of Life Professionals. And today we are talking with Kate and Kate from the Coffin Club UK. And we're going to just jump right in. Kate, introduce yourselves. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
So I am Kate T.
And I am Kate D. I am Common Kate.
And I'm Posh Kate, or blonde and redhead.
Naturally red, of course. So yes, that is us.
So that's who we are. What we do. So we are award-winning funeral celebrants.
You know.
And we're also the founders of Coffin Club UK.
Yeah, I have a feeling there's a lot more to you than that. So we're going to dive right in.
Yes. So yes, as funeral celebrants, we basically work terribly hard within our own community to try and promote different ways of doing funerals. So we want to change the face of funerals in the UK. And we do that through Coffin Club as well, which is an educational platform, which basically we started in Hastings with Coffin Club Hastings, but we now have clubs up and down the country, and they're where people come and plan and cost their perfect send-off.
Probably is we don't do death very well in this country. We don't like to talk about it. We don't even like to think about it. And, you know, one thing is that we are all going to die. So we need to actually normalise it and be able to talk about it and not say coffee and words like that. You know, just normalise it all, because it's just mental. We don't quite understand it. And the more we think about it, the more we're completely perplexed and want to get it out there, to talk about it, plan it, cost it, because it is going to happen.
Yeah, no matter what, that is absolutely guaranteed.
Do you think, I heard you say that it's bad in this country, in the UK, do you think death avoidance is higher than other countries or about the same?
Well, the British are famously uncomfortable with large emotions. I think while that is a stereotype, there is some truth in that, you know, the old stiff upper lip and don't talk about it probably does exist. And you know, we go and give lots of talks at things like the Women's Institute, the University of the Third Age. I don't know if they're things you have in the States. And when we first get there, everyone is kind of, you know, looking at their shoes and a little bit nervous because death is in the title, or funeral, and they're a bit like, oh, I'm uncomfortable. I don't know what they're going to talk about. Am I going to be made sad? Am I going to be made a bit frightened? Am I going to have to think about things I don't really want to think about? And then because we're very jolly, Mitzi, and we make things really quite normal, by the end, they're all putting their hand up, aren't they? They're all telling us about a funeral they went to, whether it was good or bad. And it just, you know, gives them permission to talk about this stuff. And that's what's so important, that if you're weird about it, then other people are weird about it. If you are normal about it, it's just normal. And it is normal. It's, you know, it is part of everyone's experience, or will be at some point in their life.
Yeah, I mean, we're not trying to put the fun into funerals, because, you know, death, funerals, it's bloody awful. I mean, it's a horrendous time for people, but we're hoping that by educating people to know all of the choices that they have around their end of life celebration helps with the grieving process, because that's what it's all about. And we feel that perhaps that's not being done at this time. We've done it the same way for so long. It's not questioned. People are just channeled one way. And we're all so different, and we're all, you know, especially the next generation, they want choice. And so we need to get it out there. And that's what we are doing. Talk by talk, coffin by coffin.
And ahead of time, Coffin Club gets you before you're at a point of bereavement. Very difficult at a point of bereavement to think creatively or ask difficult questions. So we get it. We're very used to being channeled straight to a funeral director at a point of bereavement. Funeral directors, there are many very brilliant funeral directors, but many work from a premise of, here are my 3 packages, which one would you like? We kind of come at it from a completely different place where we're sort of like, what would you like? And we'll accommodate that. But we do get that at a point of bereavement, often that's quite difficult because people are not, in a great headspace. And so maybe they're in the headspace to go, yeah, here's my money, you sort it out. So Coffin Club is about getting people before a point of bereavement when they can think creatively and they can ask those questions and they have that ability and clarity to do that.
Yeah, I mean, they have a funeral wish list. Our clubbers, that's what we call the people that come to Coffin Club, our clubbers. And they work through, as the course continues, they work through their funeral wish list so that by the end of the course, they've costed it, planned it, written it all down, and then they can sort of just put it away and get on with living. And then their families know exactly what they want.
I mean, our journey was basically, we were marriage registrars. So in the UK, you work for the county council in order to be able to marry people. So we worked for East Sussex County Council as marriage registrars. And then we decided to leave and become independent celebrants. So first of all, it was weddings. Then we realised they were very seasonal, usually only on a Saturday. It wasn't kind of like year-round income. So we thought, OK, we'll train to be funeral celebrants, which we took very seriously, didn't we? We were like, that's a big weight of responsibility. We need to be sure that we're up to the job. So we went and did some training, which was, OK. Then we started doing funerals. And what tends to happen here is that, you go to a funeral director, they say, was mum or dad or whoever religious? If yes, OK, here's your faith channel. No, OK, here's the crematorium. On majority of people are cremated in the UK. I think it's more burials in the US, but in the UK, it's mainly cremations. So with a cremation, you tend to get a 30-minute slot at the crematorium. So it is very much, one in, one out. So we did that for a very short amount of time. And then we kind of turned to each other and went, is this it? Is this what you would want for your funeral? Is this what you would want if, your husband or one of your children, heaven forfend, died, and the answer was no.
Yeah.
So
because we were marriage celebrants, we've been to lovely venues and barns and village halls, and so we actually spoke to all of our venues and said to them, would you think to hold a funeral service in your venue? And it was really strange because initially they were like, do we, can we? Don't know, body coffin, how are we going to do that? But very quickly, because we talk about it so normally, they were like, OK, that's income in the week. I see absolutely no problem. And without, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of it. 100% of the people that we spoke to said absolutely yes, we would hold, whether it be a funeral, the whole thing, or the coffin there or the coffin not there. They were happy to facilitate anything. So we were so excited.
Yes. So we went trotting off to our local funeral directors, full of joy, Nixie, full of hope, full of naive wonder. And we got there and said, there were bluebirds flying around our heads. And we got there and said, listen, we've been to all these venues. They'd love to host funerals. Will you offer that to families? And they all said no. We just went, no. And when we said, oh, why not? They said, well, nobody's ever asked us for it. So we were like, well, yeah, because they don't know. You know, there's a lot of misinformation, isn't there? You know, people think it's the law in this country that you have to use a funeral director. They think it's the law that you have to go to the crematorium, you know, and when you tell them that you don't have to do any of the above, they are just completely like, well, what? You know, I did not know that. And then when we actually conduct funerals in different settings where we've separated the cremation or burial from the celebration of life, there's always guests at the end, aren't there, come up to you and go, oh my God, that was so amazing. I didn't know you could do it like this. This is definitely what I'm going to do. And so we just became absolutely obsessed with getting that information out there. And so we set up the first Coffin Club in Hastings. And then from that, it just sort of snowballed, didn't it?
Yeah. I mean, what all we're trying to say is that if you want your 20 minutes at the crematorium with a Dickensian gentleman in a top hat, then that's absolutely fine. We would support you 100%. But if you're only having that 20 minutes at the crematorium because you don't know of all the other choices, all the other things that you could have, then that's not right. So you need to, you know, we need to get the word out there. We need everybody to know of
you should be making an informed choice. You shouldn't just be being channeled. And that is, you know, currently kind of what is happening. So we also now train funeral celebrants because we really think that they're part of this movement for change too, that if people realise they can go to a celebrant rather than going straight to a funeral director, and these celebrants have all the tools in their toolbox to say to people, okay, let's look at other ways of doing this, then, you know, we can be a movement for change. We can really change the face of funerals. And like Kate says, if you give people all those choices and they go, you know, you say, yeah, you can be in a woodland with fire eaters and dancing girls and, you know, whatever, naked jugglers. And
sign me up.
They and they you know, think all of that through and then go, no, do you know what? I would really like 20 minutes at the crematorium. We'll be like, fantastic, we will support you 100%. And for some people, that's absolutely the right choice and it can still be a really lovely and meaningful service. But for other people, you know, we know, because we've had people come to us who thought they were going to have a 20-minute crematorium service and they end up with something alternative and fabulous. And they are like, this has completely changed everything. I was dreading it. It was something to get through. It was something that I just needed to get past. And this has been something that I have taken ownership of, that has been creative, that I've really enjoyed, and that I actually like to look back on. And, you know, that's just our work here in Durham.
Quick question. In that instance, are you speaking of the person who's planning their own funeral? Or are you talking about their family members looking back?
It's a bit of both. Ashley came to Coffin Club and he thought he was going to have 20 minutes at the crematorium. But he was quite an alternative guy. And what he really wanted was to be buried on his own land. But he didn't think that that was possible, or he thought it would be a really complicated process. It's actually really very easy in the UK. So we talked him through the process and he ended up with a funeral in the village hall, which was next to where his land was. He was then drummed across by these Indian drummers and buried on his own land. And then everybody came back to the village hall and a local Indian restaurant had come in and catered. And it was just amazing. And his family had decorated his coffin. He was very well travelled, so they'd stuck maps from where he'd been. He loved going to festivals and gigs, so they had flyers and tickets. So, you know, that was a really amazing thing for them to do. But he also got what he had wanted. So in that case, it was for both. Sometimes it's, you know, the family. So I had someone come to me who, she said, oh, you know, my mum has died. And I started saying, oh, you know, you can have a different setting. She said, oh, my dad's really conventional. He will want the crematorium. I said, that's absolutely fine. I was just putting it out there. You could be at this lovely hotel up the road, blah, blah. She went off and I thought, oh, well, it'll be a conventional crematorium service. That's absolutely fine. And then she phoned me up and said, oh, no, we've talked about it and we'd really like to be at this hotel. And then we talked about a candle ritual, which the grandchildren did. And, you know, and it just completely took away time restriction. They then had an afternoon tea and mum actually went and was, had a direct cremation like a week before. So the whole thing changed, but they really took ownership of it rather than just handing it over. They became creative and part of it. So it's a bit of both.
I mean, we talked about Coffin Club. It isn't just an educational platform. We do have speakers to come and tell them, you know, the manager from the local crematorium, a local doula, the local hospice, bereavement counsellors, a lady that did her husband's funeral DIY, got the coffin off the internet, etc. We do have all of that, but we also, if you like to, you can decorate your own flat pack coffin. So that's the secondary part of Coffin Club. And it's really strange because just having that box represent that person, and it certainly doesn't need to be a work of art. It can be stickers or maps or handprints or anything else that you want. But having a coffin like that makes it so much less scary. It can then, the person is then central to proceedings. Your family and friends can write on the coffin, a part of it, can lean on it, can talk to the person. Even that small change makes such a huge difference.
Yeah.
We're not making great big massive, like Kate says, we're not jumping around naked, we're not doing anything completely wacko.
You wouldn't want to see that, would you?
Actually, to be fair, you wouldn't. It would not be a good look. But, you know, it is about the person that has died.
Yeah, and exactly that, isn't it? I mean, you know, at Ashley's funeral with the decorated coffin, they were coming up, there'd been space left for people to write messages. They were chatting to him, they were patting it, you know, and that's just so different to when you're at the crematorium and this horrible box is up there and people often say, oh, am I allowed to go up there? It's like, you know, suddenly there's some power dynamic that is very different.
And it's tucked up the back as well, isn't it? It's
yeah.
At the front, it should be there. Should be in the middle.
And our coffins have weight-bearing handles, so families can carry rather than having to pull bear, which is what normally happens here. They're carried on the shoulder and the handles aren't weight-bearing, which makes it very tricky for families if they want to do it themselves. But you can get loads of weight-bearing handled coffins.
Strangely enough, because we didn't have any idea really of who was going to be our typical clubber. We presumed it would be the elderly, the terminally ill, or those who care for those terminally ill. But actually, that is absolutely not the case. One of our clubbers, one of the reasons that he came to Coffin Club was because of the handles, wasn't it? Because he was incensed of how much the handles of his wife's for the coffin cost.
The handles were plastic, weren't they? They're plastic generally because they're not weight bearing, they're plastic. And he had to pay to upgrade to genuine brass handles. And he was so outraged that he came to Coffin Club and had a cardboard coffin.
Yes, you couldn't even, you sat in a room to try and think of the different people and different reasons they would come to Coffin Club. You couldn't. Well, you just wouldn't believe it. It's amazing.
And we now have coffin clubs like up and down the country because we now train other people to set up and run coffin clubs and be part of the coffin club family, which we are immensely proud of. We're just so thrilled that other people want to, you know, spread this message within their communities. It's just utterly amazing, isn't
Well,
it?
it's just so empowering. It's empowering for us, and it's empowering families and people to take control. And that's what it's all about. It's simple.
You've gotten to the fact that, you know, what you do and how you do it, and what you do, it isn't simple. Educating people and inspiring people to have this, right? Normalizing that there's creative and interesting ways that we can take control of our end of life plans, and speakers, training celebrants, flat pack caskets, all of these things. That's a lot. I don't know if it's simple at all.
Yes.
So what
That's my fault, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's amazing, and we call it planting seeds, right? You have to plant seeds, and people have to witness the whole pattern of.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
Because we think everyone that comes to one of these funerals, you know, not only do they come up to us and go, oh my God, that was so amazing, they go off and they talk to 20 other people and say, I went to this funeral, it was amazing, you know, and that's how it goes. And that's, you know, also why we want to get celebrants on board, because we think they're amazing and they can be at the heart of this. And there are funeral directors who also are fantastic and, you know, singing from the same song sheet as us. And it's you know, it's just long overdue, isn't it?
Even for the dead, what we like to think is that if they're, however that we're celebrating their life, if they're at the back of the room, if they say that was bloody brilliant, then everybody's done their job. And we're absolutely convinced again that if they feel that they've done the best they could for their loved one, then again that gives some comfort, some help along the grieving process.
I mean, going back to the coffins, we get our coffins from a company called Coffin in a Box in Holland, and they come flat packed and you put them together. And we had a clubber who, she was terminally ill with cancer, and we had decorated her coffin together because she'd been really poorly, so she hadn't been able to finish it at the club. So we ended up having it on my dining room table, and we had a bit of a Prosecco party, and Kate D had to be driven home, didn't you? Got a bit messy.
I had a lovely time. I love Prosecco.
So we finished decorating her coffin with her, and then she did die. And we had the coffin, I had it at my house, and it had these really nice kind of linen coffin liner. And so I said to Kate, can you come from your house and we'll iron the coffin liner and we'll put it in the coffin ready to take to the undertaker. And considering this was a very small thing that we were doing, and that we weren't closely related to her, it really felt like an act of love. It felt like a very important thing that we were doing. And we monkey about all the time, but we didn't. We felt very, you know, respectful and like we were holding space for her, and that this was a very important thing. And we said afterwards, you know, if we felt like that over somebody who we had a relationship with, but not, you know, not really, really close, imagine how that must be if you are doing that for somebody you deeply, deeply love. It's just amazing. I would want to be the woman who comes to talk to us about her husband's funeral, that she basically kept his body at home, bought the coffin off the internet, transported him in her daughter's estate car. And she said that she was the one who put the lid on his coffin, and that really meant something to her, that she had been, you know, married to him for 50 years. She didn't want a stranger washing him and dressing him. She wanted to be the one who did it, and she did. And I think it's about looking back, isn't it, to how we used to do things before the men in suits got hold of it and started going, I know how to make money out of this shit. And so we want to go back to when it was the wise women of the village who, you know, did all this stuff. because they were wise. They knew what they were doing. You know, they knew how important it was. And it's like that's been taken away.
It gave her time as well, didn't it? It gave her time to process it. So by the time she put the lid on his coffin, she was ready. She'd done her goodbyes and she was ready to let him go. And she said that was completely powerful.
Wow. Yeah, thank you for sharing that story. I think it's so important. It's the heart of the reason that we're doing this podcast is to promote psychologically sound funerals, right? And allow that process and sharing the education so people even know the difference, because we've been just taught out of it, haven't we, by those men in the suits?
Well, Kate and I always say about, you know, funerals that we do, where it's been very conventional and, you know, the person's been picked up like that. The second they're dead, you know, get them off the premises immediately. Things are going to start degrading, you know. Sleeping and smelling and decomposing, you know, like the second they breathe their last breath. And then, you know, so the family have maybe seen them dying, maybe not even seen them dead. And then the next time they see them, like, open casket here is very uncommon. And you might go and they say view, but we really hate that. You might go and hang out with your dead at the funeral directors, but you might not. Often people choose not to. So they haven't seen that person. And then the next time they see them, they're in a box coming out of a hearse. And we see them, don't we? They recoil. They are traumatized by that. And I just think, you know, that's quite easily avoided if we all just embrace this stuff and, you know, engage with the process rather than going, I don't want to, you know.
Close doors.
And I'm sure that, you know, it's with the best will in the world. It's like, we'll take care of it for you because it's difficult for you. But actually, I don't think that's the healthiest outcome.
I would agree. So if it's okay, we're going to switch gears a little bit. And I think you've covered tiny bits of it. But what are the challenges you're facing offering this to
people? How long have you got, Mitzi? Well, we've kind of covered the, you know, reluctance to talk about it. Also the funeral director as gatekeeper, and the kind of in the UK, the tradition around respect. So somehow tradition and respect have sort of become intertwined. So having a guy dressed as a Dickensian gentleman in a top hat with a cane somehow signifies respect. Kate and I are not quite sure why. Why is that respectful? It's traditional, but it's not about respect. So the challenge is also unpicking several hundred years of history and, we've always done it like this, and, you know, people understanding, like you say, this fear around being respectful, actually really honoring who that person was is the most respectful thing you can do. So I did a funeral for a guy, it's a really well-known shoe designer called Terry de Havilland. You can Google him. He did shoes for like T-Rex and David Bowie. And his funeral was in a local bar. And it was a very drunken affair. Quite a few people were very stoned. I think, is weed legal in Washington State? I don't even know. Well, it's not here. And it was an uproarious affair, and it was absolutely brilliant and so fitting for him. He had a leopard skin hearse. His son was live streamed from Australia. You know, videos were played. It was just brilliant. you know, so on paper, not a respectful, you know, conventional, not a Dickensian gentleman in sight, but in actuality, absolutely perfect to embody the person who'd died. And his wife was like, absolutely.
Yeah, she doesn't stop talking.
No, she was delighted by it, because she was like, he would have loved it.
She takes real comfort. You can see when she talks about it, real comfort for what she, you know, what she was able to do for him. But yeah.
And she painted his coffin, and it was amazing. It was all like pop art, pow, zap, and yeah. And she's actually a good artist, so it looked really good. It was great. Yeah,
I mean, challenges even, I think people coming to Coffin Club think it's going to be difficult and a morbid and sad place, and perhaps full of weirdos called cults. Perhaps we're a cult. But actually, you know, within the first week, they realise that we are quite normal, and we speak about death and dying and coffins and bodies and things so normally that within 5 minutes they feel completely comfortable, and it's given them permission to talk and think about death and share their experiences. And everybody's got a different experience. Everybody's got a story to tell. And once they start talking, they don't stop. And then they're telling the taxi driver, the lady in the corner shop, their friends, their family. And so it ripples out and then enables more and more people to talk normally about it, because it is quite normal.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
I mean, the other challenge as celebrants is that in the UK, the funeral director is the gatekeeper, and families go to the funeral director, and then it's generally up to the funeral director to direct them, signpost them either to a faith leader or a celebrant. It means that lots of really good celebrants are just not getting any work because they're not the go-to celebrant. And it also means that stuff has been set in stone before the family get to you, because the funeral director has said, yes, you can have half an hour at the crematorium. You get one piece of music going in, one going out, and one in the middle. You know, and as a celebrant, you kind of get given that, and then you can't say, actually, there's loads of other stuff you could do, because it's sort of too late. So our challenge is to get celebrants to be braver about marketing directly to their communities, and to get themselves skilled up so that they can also say, yeah, I know what you can do, and I can support you in doing that. So that's been another kind of challenge in training celebrants, that we're trying to break the mold a little bit.
It's kind of been shrouded in mystery. You know, the funeral directors have kept it all to themselves. I mean, the paperwork and things, it's not that difficult. And if you go to our local crematorium, the staff there would go through and help you fill out all the forms, if that was what you would want to do. So there is nothing that you can't do yourself if you want to, but it seems as if that's all been sort of kept from them, at least.
Well, I think there's been a benefit to keeping it shrouded in mystery, hasn't there?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the opposite of a challenge, actually, is the fact that the funeral world, what you're allowed to do is really unregulated in the UK. You know, as long as you dispose of the body correctly in the final instance, so burial, cremation, or burial at sea, we don't really have any other options currently that are legal. You know, what you do for your celebration of life, you can do whatever you like. It's not regulated. So if we can sort of break the stranglehold, then, you know, the world really is everyone's oyster, because they can do whatever they like. And that's not to say that we don't advocate using funeral directors, because we think they absolutely have their place. And in all the funerals that we have ever done, we've very rarely there's no funeral director involvement. Very, very, very rarely. So, you know, that's fine. You know, we're not trying to stop people using funeral directors. We're just saying maybe use them in a different way. Maybe go to a funeral director and say what you want rather than accepting what they're offering you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we want to work with funeral directors, not for funeral directors. And that's how it is at the moment. But we are step by step changing and making funeral revolution, and it really is. It feels like we're disrupting it all, and we are clawing our way.
Yes, we are. And you know, that's why we're not always very popular. And that makes us think we're onto something, because if the establishment don't like you, you're doing something right, aren't you?
Yes, that's a good spot to be in, right?
Yes.
When people don't know what they don't know, and
the
establishment's against you. You've touched a nerve somewhere, and that's a good thing. So moving on to the hopes, right? I can get a bit of it already, which is you hope to get more coffin clubs, more celebrants, more education to the people. I have some hopes for the UK is that we have aqua hydrolysis and human composting here in Washington State and a handful of other states in the United States. And those are, of course, some green options that we are hoping for.
Oh, I'm obsessed with composting.
Yeah.
I just love the thought of being composted.
Yeah.
Bring it on. I love a compost heap. I can't wait. Can you make sure that happens?
Can't wait.
I can't. I can't wait for it to come to the UK.
Can't wait. Honestly, she
so that I know I can be composted. Yeah, because it's just not green, is it? Either option currently is just really bad for the environment, whichever way. And we're a small island. We haven't got much room to keep burying people.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good example, because cardboard coffins are the sort of cool thing to have at the moment. But actually, they're not very green. They're really not, because they take a lot more juice, a lot more gas in the cremator. And so they're not actually the best thing to use. There's even these little things that people think they're doing the right thing.
Yeah, they think, oh, I'll get a cardboard coffin because it's eco-friendly, and it's like, it's not. Yeah.
Yeah, see, you're educating right there. You can't stop, can you?
Thank you, Mitzi. Yeah, so I don't know. I think we feel quite hopeful that there'll come a tipping point, and that once that happens, things will shift quite quickly. But who knows? I mean, it's been a very weird couple of years, hasn't it? So I think everybody's feeling very deathed out and very aware of their own mortality. So yes, we live in interesting times.
I mean, what we would really love is that there to be no need to run coffin clubs, because everybody knows. They all know about the choices. They all know exactly what they can have. Everyone's talking about it. It's completely normalised. Get on with living.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah. Yeah. So first of all, we'll have loads of coffin clubs up and down the country, and they will do their work, and then everybody will know, and then we'll have a great big party, a closing down party.
Oh, can I say one thing though that I really hope, because this is getting closer to Kevin Bacon, isn't it?
Oh.
So I'm obsessed with Kevin Bacon. So I want to be cremated. But what I really want is to have a life-size picture of Kevin Bacon on the inside of my coffin lid, so he's on top of me as I burn. That's what I really want. So, I mean, if anybody knows Kevin Bacon could pass that message on, I would be very grateful.
You know, every time we get any airtime, she says that and goes, if anyone knows Kevin, honestly, she actually thinks one day someone's going to go, hey, Kev, there's this lady in Battle in England, and that he's going to be like, oh yeah, okay.
Strange things have happened.
He looks really scrawny in those EE adverts in his funny
like him.
jumpsuit.
I like him, and he was fantastic in Footloose. All I need to say.
So we covered all of the pieces for this podcast. On our way out today, how can people find you and connect with you the best?
Wow.
That was a big pause, wasn't it?
No, I was going to say something hilarious, but no, I'll just tell them the website, shall I? So yes, go to www.coffinclub.co.uk, or you can email us at hello, HELLO, at coffinclub.co.uk. Yes, we're quite responsive, aren't we?
Yeah,
We
and
do get
especially
back.
if your name's Kevin, you get very fast.
We do have a mailing list which you can jump on, and then you get, I'd like to say it's a monthly newsletter, but actually it's a bit more random than that. It's kind of whenever I get round to doing it, I go, oh my God, I haven't done a newsletter. And then I whack down some interesting stuff that we've been up to. So yes, feel free to mail us, get put on the newsletter, and
Insta.
follow us on Instagram. Facebook, we've got a Facebook page, and
YouTube.
oh yes, we've got a YouTube channel, and
We're very down with the kids, you know.
yes, Mitch has just told us that we need to do some ticking and talking, so we might do a bit of that. Yes,
Ooh.
have to get one of the kids to teach us how to do that, won't we?
Do we have to do a dance? Isn't there?
No, you don't have to do a
Oh,
dance.
I'd like to.
Oh.
all of those ways to contact you will be in the show notes. So anybody listening to this can find those on the show notes, either on the YouTube channel or on the podcast. And we will stay in touch, and we will watch. No pressure, but we are waiting for your TikTok channel. I will follow you immediately.
Yes, okay.
And
We're on it.
so if you're cool, call it the Clock app. I don't know why.
Oh.
Oh.
Well, we are cool, Mitzi. You may not have realised how
No.
cool we are.
Very cool in our own little heads.
Yeah.
I think you're very, very cool. And it's been a pleasure to meet you and speak with you for the last little bit. And I look forward to collaborating more.
Yes, likewise.
Thank everybody for listening to this podcast or watching us on YouTube, and connect with us anywhere you find Dead Funny Dead Serious: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.